You're welcome back. This is Newsfile. It's your most authoritative news analysis show. And here on Newsfile, we put Ghana first. And today, just briefly, my take, and I'll seek to do it under minutes. So there was this report in the course of the week of Alfred Obetsebi-Lamp, a businessman, having been attacked at the mall, as reported by the Daily Guide newspaper, that he was confronted by a citizen who sought to ask him when he was going to pay the 51 million debt that he owed the state. And that led to some confrontation, and the matter was reported to the police. But Alfred Obetsebi himself, according to that report, if the report is true, sought to not pursue the matter, and so did not give a statement. And so the matter died there. Now, what's my beef about that issue? It is the case that there is some section of the Ghanaian public that wants to promote that and suggest that this is an indication that citizens are going to rise and take the law into their own hands and deal with corruption if the state shows, sluggishness, as it were, is not showing that much interest in fighting these matters. Now, the problem with that is that if we continue to do any such things, we will be encouraging and promoting impunity and lawlessness. It ought not be the case. We are in a democracy of the rule of law. If you have issues, you deal with them through due process. You have no right to attack anybody, even if they have been declared or convicted by a court as criminals who have stolen from the state. You cannot. It is the state that will have to deal with them. Please, let's eschew that attitude and let's not promote it, because if that were the case, we'll live in a jungle, and just you, may not survive the situation. Thank you very much. So let's watch it. And that's my title of my editorial. Let's watch it. Let's not encourage impunity and lawlessness. Let's not use unlawful means to seek to correct what is unlawful, or an illegal means to correct what is illegal. Thank you very much. And you're welcome to the show. And call it a special edition because of the special moment that we are in, the Easter moment that we are in. My guests are seated now, and I've got in the studio Abdul Malik Kwekubako. He's editor-in-chief of the New Crusading Guide newspaper and our regular panelist here on the show. Dr. Bosman Asari, he's head and senior lecturer at the Department of Political Science, University of Ghana. Dr. Bosman Asari, this should be your first time on Newsfile. I'm excited to have you. Thank you very much. Also, we have Felix Kwachi Ofosu. He's Deputy Communications Minister, and Fabel Jr. He's a private legal practitioner and with the NPP. Thank you very much, gentlemen, for joining us in the studio. We'll be joined on the phone by Dr. Kwesi Enin, who is Director, Faculty of Academic Affairs and Research at the Kofi Annan International Peacekeeping Training Center. Thank you very much once again for joining us. And this show is brought to you by the kind sponsorship of Bank of Africa's Strongest Group and close as a partner, MTN. Welcome to the new world. Star Assurance. They've been creating smiles since 1985 and celebrating 30 solid years of partnership with you. And I understand that Radio Gaskia or Gaskia FM in the northern region is picking Newsfile starting today. And the program's manager or director just informs me about that. So Radio Gaskia, welcome to join the many that associate with this platform. Thank you very much for giving your people the opportunity to enjoy the best of education. This is the ultimate as far as news analysis in this country is concerned. Thank you very much for joining us, Radio Gaskia, in the northern region. Now, gentlemen, let's start, shall we? And I'd like us to start with the matters regarding the 3 South African security trainers who were brought into the country and the fallout from that. We would proceed to look at the clergy that have come under attack and the churches as well. Then we may look at the problem of jihadists who seem to be on the rampage at this moment. And finally, pay our tributes to Jake Otanka Obetsebi-Lamp. Yes, that has always been the format. It's always been the format, but should it always be that way? As if we are warming up. We are warming up to it. Okay, right. I defer to your judgment then. So shall we? I'll start with you, Kweku. Jake's demise came as such a big blow to many people. I mean, almost every Ghanaian has been sort of, sad about the development. Notwithstanding the fact that sometime last year there was some rumor in the media that he had passed. We are told that he was battling an illness. He was taken to South Africa for treatment, and then he was moved on to London, and then unfortunately death laid its icy hands on him in London. How did the news get to you?
Well, it was early morning. I suspect it was Sunday or so, on social media. And I had a lot of people calling and asking if it was true. And I said, well, I wasn't in a position to authenticate or confirm. So I decided to do some few checks. But of course, the first social media thing I saw, because of the source, made me think it could get close to, is it Brian Achampon or so? Right, yeah. So I thought that could give it some credibility. I did double checking and it turned out to be true. And I'm saying that many of us who knew, or some of us rather, who knew that he wasn't in good shape, were only hoping against hope that things would turn around for the best, for the better, Unfortunately, we don't decide these things, so it happened. So it was a sad moment. It was a great friend, though we belong to the different, political stables in terms of ideological orientation. We had worked together in many, many respects. And, Jake, when he was with Lintas, or when he had much to do with Lintas, those were the days when the Ghanaian media, the private media, were having a lot of challenges. It's only in this country that sometimes you find out that advertising revenue does not help, does not, because the papers, some of us don't get the adverts, but we survive. And those days, it was very difficult for entities to give out adverts. He did, through Lintas. Some of us struggling newspapers. So the relationship really deepened during that period. And in spite of the obvious fact that our fathers were at a different level of political, divide and were virtually antagonistic to each other those days, it never affected our relationship. He had a brother called Chebi who was part of my group, a left-wing group, and he was on the right. But so then you see this as a person who doesn't allow.
Yeah, you are speaking of the UP as against the CPP.
Yes, yes, and you should know the antagonism then, historical antagonism that existed between the CPP and the UP, and my old man being a very key member of the CPP. You would have expected that this could, more or less affect the relationship. He never for once showed it that, look, this gentleman is coming from this stock and that his old man might have contributed to even the difficulties his father went through. And that tells you the kind of human being he was. And throughout the 80s to the 90s particularly, we collaborated in so many political projects, the Joint Action Committee and all those. So it's somebody, I think, rose about divisiveness, disunity, animosity and things. That's a human being that we've lost. He's a great guy, great professional, and he's contributed his quota to nation building. I salute him.
Great. Egbert, you said that the son of Emmanuel Odakwe Obetsebi-Lamp is gone too soon. Alas, he was a colossus Democracy is poorer, not because Jake invented it, but because he lived it. Farewell, Chairman Otanka. The liberty your father and his generation laid down their lives for is here. That sacrifice was not in vain.
Yes, certainly. In writing that as my tribute to Chairman Otanka Obetsebi-Lamp on Facebook, I was very mindful of the fact that he comes from a very high political pedigree. If you pass Obetsebi-Lamp circle, his father's monument stands there, large, over that part of Accra to tell the story of our independence and, the various facets of it. I got to know Jake as an undergrad, Legon in 1992, when we were all agitating for change. We wanted a PNDC out. We wanted a constitutional rule. And Jake used to come around, speak to us. He was very generous. Even wherever he found you, he will, stop once he recognizes you as somebody he's met in political circles. He will speak to you and find out how you are doing and all the rest. But you see, the New Patriotic Party has lost, a bulwark. And I'll say so because, when the news came out, I just was doing a little, introspection. And one of the things I found very, very, very striking was that I remember that I read a book by Atani Delali Emmanuel, statesman, solid MPP man. The book is titled The River in the Sea, the autobiography of Atani Delali Emmanuel, the village boy, lawyer, politician, and entrepreneur. Now, if you turn to page 323 of the book, he says something interesting, and I think that you just permit me to just read. He was just recounting how the MPP came into being. And I'll quote from some parts. As the committee could no more guarantee the secrecy and reliability of the huge numbers who were then attending the meeting at Kreku's residence, Hackman also Ajman offered us his residence at Tetekwashi roundabout for this subcommittee. Hence, it was at this house of Hackman that the committee, 1, agreed on the name National Patriotic Party, 2, drew up the constitution of the party, and 3, agreed on the symbol of the elephant proposed by Safwedu's boys as against Professor Dubois-Hines' proposal of 2 heads, signifying our belief in multi-party democratic institution of 2 heads being better than 1. The actual MPP logo of the colors and the elephant was designed by Jake Obetsebi-Lamp. Now, you flip and get to page 327 of the same book. He recounts certain things and then says, in the meantime, Jake Obetsebi-Lamp had designed our logo with the party's colors at the background, with the right foreleg of the elephant hanging in the air. His interpretation was to stamp down and out for good the menace of the PNDC. That is the man we mourn today. Any member of the MPP who sees the party's colors and the logo should know that yes, various people did, some drafted a constitution, but he was a media titan. And what he did for the party at the time was to conceive the symbol together with others, of course. But the logo, he used his offices, he used his workmen, so when we see these things, we should know that, well, we have lost a major contributor to the story of Ghana's Fourth Republic. And for the MPP, I believe that we have also lost part of the soul of the party. May he rest in peace.
Great. And Felix, and on the note that Egbert ends with Jake's, undoubted, credentials when it comes to the area of advertising, how he brought that to bear, particularly on the NPP's, campaign in 2000, leading it to power, and repeated in 2004. People celebrate him within the party, particularly for those kind of things that he did, the kind of, advertisements, campaign, slogans, and songs that resonated with the people, and he's credited for that. The NPP certainly has lost something in that regard.
Definitely. Anybody who was in this country and was observing the political terrain in the year 2000 cannot fail but be impressed about the role that Jake played. It certainly added some impetus to the push by the NPP to capture political power. So to that extent, the NPP has encountered a great loss. The NDC has also expressed its condolences and indicated that we have been greatly pained by his loss, because from even the perspective of an opponent, he was a formidable strategist. He did have cited a certain strategy document attributed to him. Its authenticity, of course, is still in doubt. But if what we are made to believe is true, that he authored that document, then you cannot help but respect the sort of acumen that he brought to bear on his work. He has contributed his quota to the advancement of the fortunes of the MPP. He was a Minister of State for a considerable amount of time. He
started as Chief of Staff.
Absolutely.
And then
he did his level best within the constraints of resources and space to ensure that the nation progresses in those sectors. Contemporary Ghanaian politics cannot be commented upon without finding a respectable place for Jake. Death is a great leveler. Unfortunately, it is a fate that will befall all of us. And so when it happens, irrespective of what you think of the person, irrespective of what beliefs you hold contrary to his or hers, one has to seize the moment to reflect upon life and our own common humanity. So I can only add my voice to the many who have condoled with his family, the party, and the nation as a whole. And we in the NDC and in government stand poised to participate fully in any ceremonies or traditions that need to be performed to bid him farewell. But of course, whereas the death was painful, I'm sure that anybody who saw pictures of him in his latter years would not have been in doubt that he was suffering declining health. And I think that it is unfortunate that it happened that way, because if you know Jake, he had a very huge frame, perhaps even bigger than Egbert. To see him, suffer that kind of decline was most painful. But I can only condole with his family. Yes.
That's right. Thank you very much. Now, Dr. Sari, look, this was a man that particularly a lot of people, guys in the media, could not but love him because he has ways of reaching out to you, no matter how you were perceived to be against his party and what his party stands for. And this is how Kofi Bentil, for example, of Imani, pays tribute to him. He says, "I feel a personal loss. You were unique. You sought me out, came to me, asked me, I told you my view. You respected them. You didn't turn back. You still asked," quote, "so what can we do?" unquote. I answered. So we had a useful collaboration. It was a pleasure and an honor I will forever remember. Few have their head, hands, and heart combination. You have left your mark. You have left your mark on your family, on your party, on your nation, and on me. You gloriously kept your father's legacy, indeed polished it. That's what people he disagreed with, say about him.
I think that when you look at the bigger picture for the MPP as a political party, I think many will put it that they've lost a Leviathan, a giant, someone who brought a lot of inspiration, excitement to the political party. And as the Honorable Minister rightly pointed out, we can't write the history of the Fourth Republic without mentioning his name. In terms of modern political campaigning, what he did in 2000, 2004 was so impeccable. He did a lot. And I remember in 2007, I wasn't in the country, and he was one of the 17 contestants for the... And when you listen to all the speeches given, he was talking about numbers, what the MPP as a party needed to do in terms of the various regions, the numbers they needed to amass up in order to win the election. And when you look at what he has really done for politics in Ghana, for governance issues in Ghana, I think he really deserves all the praises that have been showered on him. And it's my thinking that as many people are talking about his unifying spirit, the type who was always trying to bring people on board, people who disagreed, who tried to bring them on board. I think that we need people in our politics to be thinking about things from that angle. Because one of the things we must realize as human beings is that it doesn't matter. As pointed out earlier, these things are going to befall all of us. So let's ensure that we do our best for our country. Because once we are doing right things, if the time comes and we are no longer around, people will be mentioning our names, etc. And I think in spite of the fact that it appears to be an MPP loss, this is a loss to Ghana because the transformation he brought into the world of politics, into politics in Ghana, these things have been emulated by the different political parties. So I know he will go down as one of the political strategies, the best political strategies we've had in this country.
Okay, so a lot being said about Jake from the very day it was announced that, you know, he unfortunately passed on, and up till now, the president, John Mahama, has signed a book of condolence and has something to say about him. Former President Kufuor also had something very nice to say about him, as well as Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo. Let's listen first to President Mahama and what he had to say about Jake Obetsebi-Lamp.
Obetsebi-Lamp, we all know the role he played in our democratic process from 1992 to date. He served as chairman of the MPP, and even in the most turbulent times, you know, when adversarial competitiveness was at its height, I mean, people like Jake, you know, maintained a calm head, and working together, we've always been able to calm the waters, and that is part of what has created Ghana as a model for democracy in Africa. And so on, his passing is only fitting that as President of the Republic of Ghana, I come to mourn with the family and extend the support of government in this difficult time to help the family with any arrangements that they may wish to make.
And you just heard and saw President John Mahama, President of the Republic, paying his tribute to Jake Obetsebi-Lamp. And in the footage, those of you who saw, you saw Charles Duenes, and was that the Speaker of Parliament, is it? And one other person, I can quickly recall who the person is. Now, and that's via Charles Duenes, who is the in-law of Jake Obetsebi-Lamp. That's how I came a lot more closer to even Jake Obetsebi-Lamp, because Charles Duenes is the lawyer whom I studied after I left the law school in the law firms of Gaze Duenes and Gaze Duenes Hughes and Co. That's a personal loss to me as well. I met Jake just a couple of times, but I remember, I can recollect the encounter we had, and I can say he was a good man. Let's hear what President Kufuor also had to say.
Outwardly, he looked so relaxed, laid back. He never raised his voice. Even when he disagreed, he would make his point all right. But he wasn't the type, very much like, unlike Accra boy, I mean, not the type that would raise his fists to hit. But the Obroni in him came out, laid back, criticized. If you agreed, he worked. If you didn't agree, he would just keep mute and look the other way. But invariably, you'd see that he had a point. So this is how we came to work quite closely through many ministries. But an aspect I would want to talk about today is how, I think I would claim it, that just the two of us, through some conversation, we came to agree that Accra really wasn't as beautiful as it should be.
Right, and former President John Ejekum Kufuor also paying his respects to Jake Obetsebi-Lamp, and just the last bit about how come we definitely ended up having a ministry for the beautification of the national capital headed by Jake Obetsebi-Lamp. Now, let's hear finally from Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo.
Not everybody has what you had with him. will be protection for you as you go forward. It was an excellent night of battle. They say we're all in the hands of the Almighty. So he knows why he took him from us at this time. But wherever he is, I know he's there looking after the two of you, keeping an eye on you, wishing so much for your happiness. Those of us who cared for him, he's left behind. We'll do our best. We'll never fit his shoes, but we'll do our best.
All right, Nanado there, ending it on the most sad note. There, you could feel within him that he was sobbing, but under the circumstances, he just had to try and
They've been very good friends.
Yeah, Egbert is saying they've been very, very good friends, and so our condolences to the family, to the wife and the children, Caris and Charles, all of you. The Lord will see you through. Thank you very much.